Hi there, this is Christine Papworth coming to you live from my RE-PhD studio again. This is lesson 3, the listing presentation. You know, it's so funny because one of my one-on-one clients and I were talking today, and he said, you know, the reason that I don't do lead generation is because I'm terrified I might get an appointment and then I won't know what to say. So he happens to be in our group, and I'm not going to out him, except for now, you know, it's one of a few people since we don't have that many guys in the group. But I thought it was such a good instinct, because he's absolutely right. I think the thing that most coaching programs don't understand is that if you don't know what to say on an appointment, you're not going to lead generate. Because if you get an appointment, you're scared to death of what you're going to say. That's why we started off this coaching program with the short sale service agreement and the listing presentation instead of lead gen, because I knew you wouldn't do it anyway till you knew what to say at the appointment. So we've spent a great deal of time. We've been listening to a video all last week about the listing or the short sale service agreement itself, and how to explain it and what it is. So now I'm going to do an actual listing presentation with you as if you are the seller of this property, okay? And as you can, now, before we get to the actual listing presentation, next week's lesson, because I'm going backwards, next week's lesson is on the pre-op or the pre-qualification. Do not ever go or have anyone come to your office on a short sale listing presentation, or a regular listing presentation for that matter, without having a very thorough pre-qualification done. We're going to talk about pre-qualification next week, but I want you to know that before this point, the seller has been completely pre-qualified. We have found out if they have Fannie, Freddie, who their investor is. We have found out how far upside down they are. We know the comparables in the area. We have also, Marie, my assistant, or you, if you are your own assistant, has called to make sure that they got the email, which we send them in the pre-op package. We send them the short sale service agreement, the disclosures, and of course, along with those, the list of all the things they need to bring to the appointment. And then Marie calls them, so she calls them to make sure that they got the list. She calls them to make sure that that they are prepared for the appointment, and she calls them the morning of the appointment to make sure that they are planning on attending. The reason she does that, as you know, you've already found out with me from 2 lessons already, is I don't like surprises. I prefer to prevent all possible occurrences up front. It's called preventative medicine, and that's what we're doing when we do the pre-op, is hopefully I don't have people stand me up, I don't have people not show up, I don't have people who don't come with at least the majority of their hardship package, okay? So that's all taken place prior to this appointment. So I pretty much know where they're at. Now I'm going to be very honest with you here and tell you that probably at least half, maybe more than that, of my appointments when they come are coming to find out what their options are. And so, but I know that because of the pre-qualification part. So I already know if they are really looking to get a loan modification, then I have an attorney who I can send them to, who with a couple of pieces of paper and 2 weeks can tell them, number 1, are they qualified for a loan modification? And number 2, approximately what that loan modification will be. And we find that out within 2 weeks. So I know that you've all done a tremendous amount of work with loan modifications, because people come to you and you think you're getting a listing, and then they show up and they're like, oh, we don't want to list the house, we just want to get a loan mod. Well, I can help them find out if they can get a loan mod within a couple of weeks. I've already done that prior to this appointment typically. But if they come and they just want to find out their options, I figure I got about a 70% chance of closing them at the appointment on a short sale. If I can't close them at the appointment, I'll show you what I do. And then we'll go over those things later on in the lesson about handling objections, okay? So for today, it's pretty straightforward, and you now are super familiar with the short sale service agreement and the related documents. So now I'm just going to do a listing presentation as if you were the client, and you can see how sincere and loving I am, because I am. I really care about these people, and I want them to get what they want. I want it to be as good of a transaction as it can be, considering the situation they're already in. So we use the short sale presentation, or the listing presentation script. It is in the same place as all the other scripts and dialogues are. So make sure that you've downloaded this and have really looked at it carefully so that you are prepared to kind of follow along. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to do this perfect, because I'm going to do this as if you were sitting in front of me and you were one of my sellers. So the script is to help you. I obviously have it internalized at this point, so depending on what happens, I can pretty much wing it. All right? It's not winging it, it's winging it with a canned presentation. All right. So you will see where it says on the top of this script, do not even attempt this without an extremely thorough pre-qual, which we just went through. And then also the 2 stacks of paperwork like we have discussed before. All right, so hi there, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. I'm so happy that you're here with me today. I'm so looking forward to getting your home listed and getting you out from under this this problem that we're having, so that you can get on with your lives and have a great life from here on out. So I have 3 real important questions for you. Number 1 is, have you absolutely decided to sell your home and start over? Great. And number 2 is, will you price it correctly and allow me to, and cooperate with me on the negotiations? And number 3 is, do you want me to handle the sale for you? Great. Now I want you to know, I'm talking to you as an agent now, as a coaching client now. That is the 1-minute presentation. And most of the time, if you've done the pre-op correctly, they will be ready to sign right then. So I'm telling you, at that point in time, if they say, yes, we want you to handle it for us, then you stop and you say, terrific, all we need to do now is simply sign the paperwork. And then you're going to go through things with them at that point, okay? All right, so, but I'm pretending that you didn't say that because you're a difficult client, okay? Let's go through it together then. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, at the end of our appointment today, one of 3 things will happen. Number 1, you'll decide to let me take care of your home, list it for you, and get you out from under it, okay? Number 2 is, you may decide that you don't want me to handle it for you, and that's okay. And number 3, I may decide that I don't have a good enough opportunity to make this happen for you, and so I will tell you that I won't be able to do it for you. May I explain? Okay, great. So sometimes there are things that go on. You know, either you have a tenant who might be in the property that's extremely difficult and won't let us show it. You may have a lien of some kind that we're unable to negotiate out. Perhaps you have several loans against the property, or you're in the middle of some kind of a family trust thing. There are situations where I just can't help you. There are situations where sometimes the bank that you have is terribly difficult, and on a second, I just can't make it work. So if I see that that's a possibility with you, I won't do you a disservice by saying, oh yeah, sure, I'm going to get this through. I'm going to tell you maybe you need to look at some other options, okay? But I don't expect that that's going to happen with you, because you've done such a great job of getting me the information that I needed to have prior to our appointment today. So no worries, all right? I think you're in, all right? Okay, so let's go over then the questions that I asked you on the pre-op, okay? Now, first of all, you said that you were not behind on your payments, right? Okay, great. And you said that you obviously didn't have a notice of default if you're not behind on your payments. So you weren't planning on interviewing other agents for the job of selling your home, right? Good, okay. And that is a very good, correct answer. So you felt that your home's value was around $200,000. And you said that, actually you were pretty close too, that's pretty close on the value. And you said that you owe $480,000 on the first with Bank of America and $80,000 on the second with Chase. Is that correct? All right, great. And you have attempted to work with Bank of America. You tried doing a loan modification, and they just weren't willing to do it. Is that right? Because they wanted you to get behind, correct? Yeah, we know that story. Yeah. So then your hardship is that you're just so far upside down that you can't figure out how to make it right, and you're trying to do the right thing by selling the house on a short sale rather than getting behind and making them go through the foreclosure process on it. And also, I believe you're retiring in 2 years. Is that correct? So in the retirement issue, you're not going to be able to make this house payment once you are on retirement income. Is that your concern? Well, you're absolutely doing the right thing. This is very, very smart of you. I'm so glad that you called me. So let's see then what we can do. Now, is your hardship package complete? I see that you brought a whole stack of paperwork for me. Did you get everything on the list, or do I need to follow up with you to find some things? Oh, you have one tax return you're not quite ready with yet? Okay. Well, we'll get those. We can even have your accountant email them to us. So no problems there. Anything else that I don't have in this package? All right. And you brought current paycheck stubs, current bank statements, and you also brought the letter from your lender, so I have the loan numbers on those? Oh, perfect. All right, great. So, based on what we have discussed here, I can see a really clear course of action for you, or at least a couple of possibilities that I think will work really well for you. So let me lay out the alternatives for you. I believe that we could do one of two things. We could, I think that we should attempt doing the short sale without you being behind in your payments, all right? So that it doesn't impact your credit, because I don't know if you're aware, but about 50% of the time I'm getting these accepted. And if you don't have to get behind on your payments and you can get a short sale approved, you can either repurchase right away sometimes, or for sure within a year on an FHA or a VA loan. Did you know that? So that's exciting, because if we can get this done, you will be able to take advantage of this great market and these wonderful interest rates at the low prices. And wouldn't that be great? Buy your house back for what it's worth today, almost. Wouldn't that be awesome? All right, so that's my goal for you. Is that something that sounds like you would like to do? Our other option is, I do have a loan modification attorney who possibly could find out if you could do a loan mod, even though Bank of America has told you no. I could have him go to work on that and see if it's a possibility. However, I want you to know that less than 3% of loan modifications get a principal reduction. And without a principal reduction, wouldn't you agree it's pointless for you to do a loan mod? I agree. You're absolutely right. So shall we continue on the first plan of attack then? All right, fantastic. So, I want you to know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that we're actually signing 2 agreements today, all right? The first one is the normal paperwork that we would use whether you had $200,000 in equity or not. It's just the normal DRE, MLS, put it on multiple listing kind of paperwork, all the disclosures, everything, and that's this big pile here, all right? And the other pile that we're going to sign today is something that's even more important to you in your situation, and that is where you hire me to get an offer on your property and then negotiate the sale so that we can come to terms with your lender so you won't have any deficiency. Hopefully you'll have very limited or low taxability, and you'll be able to move on and get on with your lives, and hopefully we'll be able to do this without getting you behind in the payments. Now, I do want to warn you that only works about 50% of the time. If your loan is, depends on your investor, and if that investor insists that you get behind, then we'll have to eventually. But the shorter period of time you are behind in your payments, the less it impacts your credit. So we're going to do as much as we can to preserve your credit, okay? All right, so what we're going to talk about then today is this document, which is the short sale service agreement. You've already seen this, right? And if I were a really good listing agent and I had a really good rapport with my clients, they would bring it to me all filled out, and then they would have it signed, and I could say thank you and see you later, bye. But we're not doing that today because you guys are naughty sellers and you are not quite as good as I want you to be. So I'm going to walk with you through the listing presentation. So You know, it says here that I need to have, that you are hiring me to negotiate the sale for you. It says that I'm going to have your loan, so you brought me your loan numbers, so I'm going to write those in here, and your account numbers and all that. And I'm also going to have you initial right here, because it just explains to you what you're paying me for. All right? So what this says is that I shall perform the following services for and in behalf of you. One of them is to interview you, gather and review the information about the property and the loans on your property, and gather the hardship package, which you've already brought me all of these items except for your one tax return, which we'll get from your accountant, correct? Correct. Okay, great. So I just need you to initial here, and I'll initial here as well. Okay? And then item number B, to submit the short sale package together with a purchase agreement and necessary documents to your lender when it's time for us to start to negotiate the sale. Now, typically that happens once we have an offer, okay? There are some lenders that like us to let them know that we're going to do a short sale ahead of time, but Bank of America so far isn't one of those. So we'll let them know when we get an offer, which should take about 5 minutes. All right? So those are my two jobs in this scenario. Now, you understand what a short sale is, right? Even though it takes 4 or 5 months to complete, usually, what a short sale is when we're selling the property at less than what you owe on it, and the bank agrees to take whatever that short pay is as full payment. That's how we explain a short sale, okay? That's why we call it a short sale. It's kind of an oxymoron, but oh well. All right. Also now, this item number 3, you've already read through this. Did you have any questions on this, where it talks about how your cooperation is so critically important to the transaction? The lenders, once we get into escrow, will often ask us for documentation that you need to provide. And when they ask us for something, we have to give it to them within 24 hours or they cancel the transaction. So it's very important that you send me whatever we request immediately. Are you going to have a problem with that, or will that be okay with you? Okay, great. Because that's one of those things that if you're not going to be cooperative, then I couldn't take your listing. So I'm glad that you're going to be cooperative. All right, this number C is very, very important. Or is it C? Yes. We're going to open an escrow once we get an offer, and the buyer is going to put their money into the escrow. So they have skin in the game, and they're going to stick with us, hopefully. The other things is that you will agree to send me a bank statement and a paycheck stub at the end of every month, or when you get them, at the beginning of every month, okay? So that I can send them to the lender, because that's one thing that most lenders do require from the seller. I just need you to sign here, and I'll sign here. Now, this part is very, very important. This is the terms of sale, and it's one of the things that I like to read to you out loud. In fact, I sometimes have my sellers read this, but the words are crazy. So I'm going to read this to you, and I want to make sure that you understand it, okay? It says that except as otherwise limited by the provision of the residential listing agreement by and in between us, that relative to the property, that you agree to grant me the broadest possible authority to negotiate on your behalf the terms and conditions of a short sale of the property, including pricing changes, accepting offers, signing extensions, negotiating with your lender, as long as it costs you no out-of-pocket money. Do you understand that? Is that okay with you? All right, good. Because what it says is it's a limited power of attorney. All right? And so what it says is when we get 5 offers, which we will, within the first week of the property being on the market, usually, when we get the offer, I will look at the offers, I will talk to the buying agents, and I'll explain to them what our plan is. And then I will see which offer I feel is going to stick, because you're not going to know that, are you? You're not a licensed real estate broker, so you probably don't know which offer has the best chance of being accepted. I do. So that's why you have me, right? So I'm gonna say which offer I think we need to accept, and I'm gonna call you and say, you know what, we got 5 offers, this is what they were, this is the offer that I think we should accept. Are you okay with that? You say okay. I sign everything, I send it off to the lender, okay? And then Or if you're not comfortable with that, which is fine, by the way, if you're a little nervous about me just accepting things for you, even though I've told you about them, I can certainly email you the stuff. You can go through each offer on its own merit. You can sign them, not sign them, call and ask me questions, or you can come in and we'll go over everything every time we need a price reduction or an interest change or you know, we have to do an addendum because of value. Anything that we typically do in the course of a day, you're welcome to come in and sign if you feel more comfortable with it that way. Which would you prefer? That's what I thought. Okay, great. So it's okay if I sign for you. Now I want to read the end of this because I like saying these words because it makes me sound smart. The homeowner agrees not to reject any reasonable term or condition proposed by any lender or prospective buyer or other participant relative to the short sale of the property unless the term or condition is unconscionable, egregious, unfair, or would cause the homeowner material financial hardship. Didn't I say that well? Okay, so all of that's okay with you, right? Great. All right, the next thing is item number 6, and that talks about, you know, I am going to work so hard for you. And by the way, yes doesn't mean yes and no doesn't mean no when we're dealing with lenders. They can say, yes, it's approved, but until I get it in writing, we can't believe it. They can say, yes, the sale date is postponed, which hopefully you won't have to deal with, but until I get it in writing, we can't believe it. They can say, no, we're canceling the escrow and we're not going to approve the short sale. We can't believe that either. I've gotten many, many short sales approved when they said at the beginning, no, we're not going to do it. So I'm not afraid of anything, and I don't give up until it either goes to sale or we close it, which is, I hope, the outcome for you. So I want you to know that you will get my most reasonable and highest effort. I also want you to know that if Bank of America decides tomorrow that they're never doing another short sale, I won't be able to do it, and neither will you. And so even though they say they're not going to do another one, if they give it to me in writing that they're never going to do another short sale, then we'll have to give up. And unfortunately, it will have to go to sale. But I don't perceive that happening. I don't see that, I mean, I can't see, but you never know. So there's no guarantees. I would love to give you a guarantee, but there isn't one. And you understand that as well, don't you? Because you've been trying to get a loan mod and you know how much they lie, right? Right, okay. All right, then of course it talks about tax consequences here in number 7. Now, are you concerned about tax consequences? Because it isn't your personal, it is your personal residence, but it's not purchase money, meaning it's not your original loan that you bought the property with. You could have tax consequences. So I'm not a tax accountant, but I have to know what they know. So what I like to do is explain to you that you need to talk to your tax accountant, and if you don't have one, I'll give you a couple that you can call, okay? And I want to be sure that your tax accountant, or one that you choose from here, will help you to understand what your tax liabilities may be. Here's something I would like for you to understand, and that is that if you're going to have tax consequences, you will have them whether you allow the property to go to foreclosure or whether you don't. It's just that they'll probably be worse if you let it go to foreclosure than they will be if you sell it for fair market value. So, you know, it's not something that I can control. There is something called insolvency and there is something called bankruptcy, and those two things usually eliminate tax consequences, and I'm sure that your accountant can explain those to you. If they can't, then you come to me and we'll go find one who can, because those are typically the ways that people get away from having to have a large tax liability. I don't believe that you will have one, but we'll definitely want to check it out with a professional, okay? All right, great. Okay, so now I'm going to have you initial at the bottom of this page now, all right? But I want you to go to number 9. Number 9 says that the homeowner hereby acknowledges and agrees, and I want you to know that anything that's in bold print like this is because I've actually had this happen and I never want it to happen to you, okay? So here's this one that says that you agree that this is not a foreclosure, this is a short sale. So therefore you are bound by the laws that bind you in selling real property. So it says in the listing agreement, this stuff over here, that you agree to keep the property in as is or better condition until the close of escrow. You agree to leave the utilities on. You agree that anything that's in the property, unless you have specifically said it's not going to remain with the property, will be there when the buyer does their walkthrough, and that the property will be in decent shape. You'll keep the lawns and the yard up if at all possible, okay? So, but there is one good thing about this. Oh, by the way, I want you to know, it also says in this that should the homeowner or any relative or other person strip the property or remove the items before or after close of escrow, the buyer will have recourse against the seller civilly and criminally, or both. By initialing below, the seller agrees to leave the property in good condition with said items intact upon move out. Do you understand that? Because a lot of people think a short sale is the same thing as a foreclosure. It is not, believe me, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing them. All right? I'm here to protect you and save you against having a foreclosure. But if you strip the property, then the buyer obviously can't continue with the purchase. And so we want to protect you and make sure that you understand these things, okay? Now, there are exceptions here. So is there anything that you want to take from the property that either belongs to you, it's a gift from someone, or it's something important that you want to keep? And if that is a new range that you just put in that cost you $3,000, and you could put a builder grade range in there and take your range with you to your rental property, that's okay. I just need to know it. Okay, so is there anything that you need to tell me about that you would like to keep? All right, so you want to keep the stove, and of course the refrigerator is yours anyway, the washer and dryer are yours anyway. You would like to keep the chandelier in the entryway, and are you going to replace it or just take it out? You're just going to take it out? Fine. All right, great. Anything else? Super. All right. So, and make sure you leave the utilities on, okay? It's very, very important that we have those on to do inspections with when the time comes. Thanks. All right. Now, the next thing, item number 10 here, talks about that, you know, have you ever had a situation where you had to go to the hospital or you had surgery and it was covered by workman's comp, but then your deductible didn't cover it, and anyway, you ended up with a medical bill that they charged off? It could even be 20 years ago. Anything like that, IRS liens, state franchise tax boards liens, HOA, homeowner association liens, if you've had credit cards that have been charged off, anything like that, that you may think have gone away. I need to know about those, because when we pull a preliminary title report, quite often those things rear their ugly heads. And if it happens at the end of the transaction when we have a sale date looming or we have a close of escrow that has to happen according to the lender and we can't do it, they will cancel the file. So I need to know about anything at all that you think might come into play, okay? Can you think of anything that we might have a problem with? It doesn't say I'm not going to take your listing. If I know about it up front, then I can deal with it in almost every case, okay? Anything you can think of? Nothing. All right, great, perfect. So I'm just going to have you initial right here. Great. All right, and then if you'll just give me your signature here, that's all we need. All right? All right, super. So that's the hard part, right? Actually, collecting the hardship package was the hard part, correct? All right, and this is just general provision that's on every legal document. As you can see, my attorney went crazy on this one with all of the crazy verbiage and everything, but it's okay. He's going to protect us both, okay? All right, so let's move on then to the seller's disclosure. First of all, do you have any questions about this? Are you concerned about anything? All right, super. So the seller's disclosure states that, again, if you get behind in your payments, you will receive a notice of default eventually. That notice of default will come certified with a green stripe on the outside. Now, I'm not saying your lender won't send you every single piece of paper, tons of papers that you might think are notices of default, and they'll send you sometimes even stuff that's certified if you get behind. But it won't be a notice of default unless it looks a certain way. So I would like you to make sure that you send me anything that the lender sends you that you're concerned about. So the notice of default will come. Notices of sale, of a trustee sale, will come certified. Everything else will just come in the mail. Now, we used to tell people, don't even bother. Just throw them away. But now Bank of America and Chase are giving incentives to do a short sale. And the only way you can find out about those incentives is to open every piece of mail you get. So I want you to open your mail. And if you have any question at all, if you think they're offering you an incentive, call me. we'll call them together and find out, because they'll still allow me to do the deal with you. They'll just want me to incorporate what they want to do. But a lot of times we can get you incentives, okay? So open all your mail from both lenders and let me know if anything at all looks like it might be an incentive or an offer of some kind, and we'll walk through it together, okay? All right, now, when you receive anything certified, call me immediately and get that over to me so I can see it, because we don't get them, so we don't know unless you know. All right? Okay, it says here that you'll get calls and letters, but of course this is all if people get behind. So once you get behind, if you have to, you will get calls and letters from debt collection agencies, and I will give you a script to use, which says, "Hello, I'm doing a short sale. I can't pay you any money now. Thank you," and hang up. That's your script. That's all you have to say. Or don't answer the phone at all. It's up to you. All right. It will affect your credit rating, obviously, if you have to get behind on your payments. We've already discussed that. There could be tax consequences. We've discussed that. Now, this is kind of an important piece. And what this says is about second mortgages. If you have a second, like Chase, Chase has to agree to take whatever the first will offer them. So Bank of America, when they see that Chase has a second, they'll offer them 10% sometimes, usually $3,000, and Chase has to agree to that, or Bank of America can't do the short sale, just so you know. We have a couple of lenders who are very, very difficult to work with, and so when we have those, we still have to get approval from them. And sometimes we need your help in doing that because we have little strategies that we use, but we do have to have approval from the second before the first can do it. Now, this is very, very important. Number 6 talks about loan modification and a deed in lieu of foreclosure. These crazy lenders, you know, they'll finally, after 4 months of work, they'll finally give us an approval, or they'll finally be close to giving us an approval, and then suddenly they send you a letter, because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, that says, "Oh, maybe we'll give you a loan mod now," or "Maybe we'll do a deed in lieu of foreclosure now." And of course, if staying in your home and getting a loan mod was your top priority, you might want to look at that, huh? And of course, we want you to do what's best for you. That being said, I know that quite often these form letters are sent out only because it's a state law that you have to get a form letter offering you a loan mod before they can foreclose. In your case, where you're going to stay current on your payments if possible, they may still offer you a loan mod or a deed in lieu. Well, they won't offer you a deed in lieu, but they may offer you a loan modification just because you're a good customer, who knows. But it probably would be bogus, okay? Now, I'm not saying that sometimes loan mods work, and sometimes you even get a principal reduction, though not to the extent of your loan, I don't believe, but they might. So let's say, miracle of miracles, the lender came to you and said, "We're going to reduce your principal to $200,000, what your home is worth now." You would want to take that, wouldn't you? That would be great if you didn't have to move, wouldn't it? That's right. And we want you to do what's right for your family. We truly, truly do. So I just want you to know that if you accept a deed in lieu or a loan modification, you need to do it before the lender has approved the short sale. But if you, okay, well, let me just read this to you just so you know what it sounds like. So we understand that we understand that you may want to take one of these offers, and we want you to make the best decision for your personal circumstances and your families. However, keep in mind that if you stop the short sale after we've accepted an offer, and we are unable to close escrow because you elected to modify the loan, give the lender a deed in lieu of foreclosure, or you terminate the listing agreement because you're just tired of the whole thing, you agree to pay us the commission as described in the listing agreement. Does that sound harsh to you, or do you understand that? You do understand it? I'm so glad. Because it's always hard for me to say, but you know, after I've done 4 or 5 months of work and taken on the lenders for you, I don't get paid anything if you do one of these other alternatives. So it would help me a lot if you would agree to do that, all right? Chances are it's not going to happen, but if it does, you've agreed to pay me. Is that okay? You'd want to pay me, wouldn't you? I mean, what would it be? Okay, it's $200,000, $12,000, and you get $280,000 forgiven and you get to stay in your house, that's peanuts, right? It'll be worth it. So that will be good. All right, super. Now, do you have any other questions or concerns? All right, super then. I just want you to remember that short sales are very difficult. Not everybody can do them right, and but they are very much worth it to you. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. You know, that we would go work with the people who don't have any problem. All right, so all I need is your signature here. Great, thank you so much. All right, now the rest of this is pretty much self-explanatory. This MetroList thing just says that MLS has its rules. MetroList is MLS, where we put your property on the market so all the other agents can sell it too. And you know, they have their rules that if you take a listing on today, then you have to have it in MLS by tomorrow. Well, we have our own agenda, and so what we're doing may not comply with MLS rules. So I have you sign this little paper that says we're going to put it on the market when we want to put it on the market, not when you want us to put it on the market, okay? Unless it's in your best interest. So just sign this and then I can fight with them later. This is the authorization to release information. So this is what I use to be able to talk to your lender unless one was included in their package, which we sent to you already. You've already filled that out and I think they have one. I'm going to have you do this one too, just for my records, okay? All right, great. This is the hold harmless agreement that my brokerage, Keller Williams, wants you to have in your file. So basically it just says, look, if we do everything we can do and it doesn't work, you're not going to sue us because it didn't happen. We've already discussed this all the way through that there's no guarantees, right? So they insist that I have this signed. Do you have any problem with that? Okay, great. Now, the last thing that I want to talk to you about is, I'm just going to have you sign this. You're going to love it, so there's not going to be any question. This is my agent instruction for the short sale. I attach this to every one of my listings on multiple listings. So when a buyer goes to show your home, they're going to pull this off of the attachment to MLS. And what it does is it gives them instructions as to how they need to work with me if they want to buy your property. It's so important to you because one of the worst problems we have is the buyer not being really vested in the deal, and then they feel like they can walk anytime. So we work for 5 months, and then we find out the buyer has gone. They went and bought another house 5 months ago because we didn't do what we needed to do to make sure they were tied into the transaction. So I'm just going to have you sign this so that it has to be signed by you for me to attach it to MLS. And then the other agents understand and the buyers understand several things. One of them is when they give me an offer, I have to have a lender approval letter with the offer and proof of funds that they have the money for the down payment, or if it's cash buyer, the cash to buy the property with the offer. So there's no question if they can qualify or not. Number 2, there must be a copy of an earnest money deposit check for at least 1% of the total purchase price. And in your case, I'm going to ask for $3,000 because I want it to be painful for them to walk away if they do. Then I choose the escrow company because I work with a certain person on every one of my short sales because she knows, I've worked with her for 30 years and she knows exactly how to get your escrow closed, all right? And then, this is very important for you too, the property conveys as is. The lender may approve some closing costs for the buyer depending on your offer, but they will not do inspections or repairs. If there are obvious repairs needed, your buyer must agree to do them at their expense in the offer, even if it's a VA loan. It's one of the best things I ever did. Okay, no changes are to be made to the as-is addendum. Again, there is a home inspection capability, but repairs must be paid by the buyer, and inspections and repairs are not a contingency of this agreement. Neither the lender nor the seller will pay for a home warranty, so the buyer needs to pay for their own. Close of escrow date should be a minimum of 120 days from the date we accept their offer, and if they withdraw prior to 120 days, unless it's because they did inspections early on and found out they didn't want the property, they lose their deposit if they withdraw. That's why I put the deposit in there, so that you get it if they withdraw. Believe me, it keeps 80% of the buyers in the transaction that maybe would not have stayed had we not done this. These approval and close dates are set by the third-party lender and cannot be extended without the lender raising the price or changing their terms. If your buyer will not be ready or able to close on time, please do not write on this property. All of this is to protect you as the seller. You will be very happy. Even then, it happens, but believe me, we're hedging our bets so that we get the best buyer we can. We accept only one offer and send only one offer to the lender for short sale approval. We will not move forward without your buyer's deposit in escrow within 24 hours of acceptance, and then we will mark the subject property pending. When this short sale is approved, your buyer is the only one who will be buying it. If we are unsuccessful, the buyer will get their deposit back. We have a 95% success rate. When approval is received and your buyer is not serious, is not ready to close, it is not only inconvenient, it could force the seller into foreclosure. If anything changes with the buyer's situation during the escrow period, please inform us immediately. That's a good clause for you, huh? Yes, I'm fighting for you every day. Please prepare your buyer for a counter from the lender. So the buyer has to agree and qualify for up to $20,000 more than what we are actually accepting their offer at. And I disclose that to them in this so that they can't, after we've worked 4 months and then the lender counters and says we want $20,000 more, I already know your buyer can qualify for that, so they can't legally withdraw. All right, the commission is payable, you don't care about that, and a shortened inspection period is very, very important to you. And so all of these things will protect you. Sound good? Great, just sign here. So all we need to do now is go forward to this stack of paperwork, which I'm sure will go much quicker. It's pretty much point and click all the way through, okay? And thank you so much. I'm so excited to work for you, and I know that we're going to get this sold and get it approved so that you can move on. Congratulations.